second segment. Yes, I know halftime is like between the France and the Canadian team. It's happening right now, but I'm going to do that report in the third segment because, I want to get this segment out of the way first, and that'll also, give me time to formulate some opinions, formulate some thoughts on the actual game that's going on right now, as well as maybe after this segment, maybe if the timing works, then the game would continue, and then I'll go ahead and then I could talk a little bit about the game more while I'm doing this. So I hope that the timing is great. But aside from that, let's go into the leading scorers. So from the beginning, we know that, the United States is loaded with talent. Every single player that I'm going to mention right now is talented. However, I also would like to say a lot of the reason why most of these players are talented is because of their high usage rate in the NBA rather than actually being effective. But let me know in the comments what you guys think of that, because I think, in the NBA, usage rate goes a long way when determining a player and their value. Like, yes, obviously a player that has the ball in their hands 24/7 is going to be able to accumulate more stats than that of a player who doesn't have the ball in their hands 24/7, which is why I don't really understand people's thinking that Russell Westbrook is all that effective. That's really the big reason why. And I know you guys are like asking, why are you bringing in Russell Westbrook in this? But that is just, I'm just giving an example. Like, players with high usage rates, they're going to succeed 9 out of 10 times, especially with the NBA and how it works. Like, you could give any player the floor. You could give any player the ball 24/7. I guarantee you they will produce ridiculous numbers, especially with how the NBA works now, how defenses work, as well as how refs react to fouls. Like, I really think that any player in this league can average 20 points if they have the ball in their hands 24/7. Granted, not everyone does that because you have to be effective you have to have an effective 20 points and you have to have an effective performance in order to really, put some sort of value and put some sort of factor into your winning, if that makes sense. Because you could have 20 points in garbage time, but that's besides the point. That's sort of the reason why I think some of these players, when I'm going to read them off to you, you'll hear that, their numbers and their points per game, it's not really that effective, but I think the reason why it's not that effective is because they don't really get the ball nearly as much. In some cases, in some other cases, it's just they're playing bad, but in most cases in this list, I believe it's because they're barely touching the ball. And let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think that usage rate is more important than effectiveness? Because, in my opinion, I would rather give the ball to the most effective person because, that person is going to help you win, and I'm pretty sure that's really what everyone else would do. But let me know what you guys think. So, first two players on this list, and I say two players because they're more or less tied for total points per game. You have Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant, the two. As if you guys don't know, Anthony Edwards is a huge fan of Kevin Durant, and he thinks that Kevin Durant is the best player ever. Better than Michael Jordan, better than Kobe Bryant, better than LeBron, ever. He thinks that the fact that he's 7 feet tall and no one can guard him makes him the best player ever. And, there is some truth to that, being 7 feet tall and no one being able to guard him. They're both averaging 16 points per game. Anthony Edwards is averaging 16.7 compared to Kevin Durant, who's averaging 16, but no less impressive despite the 0.7 difference. And these two, the best scorers for the team. And guess what? They're both coming off the bench. Great job, Steve Kerr. But no, seriously, it doesn't make any sense to me how neither of these two are in the starting lineup, despite the fact that they are leading United States in total points production. If you guys watched my podcast that I did yesterday when I was, blasting Steve Kerr for his decision to bench Kevin Durant, This is just more proof. Like, Kevin Durant has been producing. I understand it's with the second unit, but you can put him in the starting lineup, then sub out a majority of the starting lineup, and then put in that same second unit and allow Kevin Durant to play. And I understand you might be like, oh, his injury and things like that. That was the reason why he sat out in the exhibition games. These aren't exhibition games now. This is, like, for lack of a better term, sudden death. This is literally life or death for the United States, and they cannot afford to mess up. And I think not putting Kevin Durant in the starting lineup is messing up. Like, I understand. We have so many talent. We have so much talent, so many other players on this team. But Kevin Durant and Anthony Edwards, they are performing. Specifically more Kevin Durant, because I think Kevin Durant would be a much better fit in that starting lineup. I think Anthony Edwards should come off the bench. If there was anyone that should come off the bench, it should be Anthony Edwards, and he'll continue playing and continue scoring regardless of who's on the court. And those are just my opinions. Next on the list is obviously the glorious king, LeBron James. Now, he's averaging 14.3 points per game. The fact that he's even in the top 3 of this list just further shows that he is the greatest basketball player of all time. I didn't see Michael Jordan, as the oldest player in the NBA, playing in the Olympics and still dominating the way that he does. Obviously, he is Team USA's closer. He is the guy that people go to when you need to get a bucket, and he is the guy that people go to when you need to create a play, any sort of thing like that. This is your go-to guy, especially in the final minutes of any kind of game. And really, it should also be noted that between France and Germany, France is very much beating Canada in the free throw battle. I said Germany, I apologize for that, but France is really just outdoing them, like, in the paint and drawing more fouls as opposed to Canada, who isn't really drawing that many fouls. And that's really the big difference maker in this matchup. Now, let me know what you guys think of that, because really, you can make the argument like, oh, they have home field advantage, but I don't really think that's what it is. Again, that's just an argument you can make. Now, back to the glorious king, LeBron James. Obviously, best player in the league, best player on the team, no question about that. Anthony Edwards even said that he was the best player in the league. Now, one player that I'm very surprised to see on this list so early is Devin Booker. He ends up scoring 10.3 points per game for the United States, along with Drew Holiday, who also scores 10 points per game for the United States. Now, I know I got a lot of controversy, I guess you could say, for some people. Like, some people wouldn't agree with Drew Holiday being in that starting lineup, but his points production and being in the top 5 for points per game for the United States is definitely, a very good catalyst for the argument, because people wouldn't really expect Drew Holiday to be that much of a scorer, let alone he gets on this list before Jason Tatum even gets on this list, which is also just, even more surprising. Next, we have Joel Embiid, arguably the biggest disappointment in the entire United States roster. His production for the United States is just not there. Now, you might argue, okay, he's top 6 in points per game. He's averaging 9.5 points per game. What's there not to like? It's everything else that is not to like. For some reason, Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis, while they are lower on this list in terms of points per game and production, like, in terms of points per game, really, like, they do more. Like, as big men, they do more for the team. Like, they're more responsible for blocks, they're more responsible for rebounds, and, they're more responsible for that defensive presence, especially in Olympic basketball where there's no 3 seconds, right? That's really where the center needs to shine. And Joel Embiid just doesn't shine in any of those categories when you compare him to Anthony Davis or Bam in these Olympic matchups. Now, that you might argue that that's the reason why that's not the reason why he's there. He's there for his scoring. Well, he's not even leading the team in the scoring, and he's not even averaging 10 points. And Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis, they're only averaging 1 less point than him. So when you take all that into account, like, his scoring isn't there, neither is his defense, and neither is his production or his, like, His rebounding, sure, but I do see Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo get more rebounds than him anyway. And again, biggest disappointment in these Olympics by far. One of them at least. Next is Bam, 8.3 points. Same with Anthony Davis, 8.3 points. I think they're the two best big men on the team, and obviously, that's not really saying much because aside from Embiid, they're the only big men on the team, but that's besides the point. Next is another disappointment in these Olympics, Steph Curry. This is I can see why now, Steph Curry doesn't really like to meddle with international affairs and, get into these Olympic tournaments because his performance has been bad. He's averaging 7.3 points per game in these Olympics, and his shooting touch has arguably, has vanished. You can make the case that he has not been shooting the ball nearly as good as we see him in the NBA. And maybe this is because of how close the three-point line is to the basket, but I don't really think so. This is just a very bad performance from him. And it's weird because in the exhibition games, he was playing pretty well, but now in these games where they really matter, he's been awful. He's been really bad. He's been building a house for these teams, and it's not it. Now, last player on this list, Jason Tatum. Now, I'm very surprised that he's dead last on this list, 7 points per game, even with the fact that he didn't play that much or he didn't play at all in that one matchup. But again, 7 points from Jason Tatum. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of these scores. Do you think these scores are rather disappointing? Do you think these players are doing enough? Who do you think is the best player on the team? And who do you think, should be in the starting lineup? Obviously, I'm going to say Kevin Durant. Now, the game between France and Canada has started, so my timing is perfect. So now I will go ahead and go into the third segment where I give a little halftime report on this France versus Canada game and just, give an update on the score as well as who's playing well for the team right after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.